Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on X, Twitch, and on Facebook. I am Bryson Carver, and do you really think I was going to miss doing a post-NFL reaction show after what we just saw? Listen, I didn't do the show yesterday. That's mostly, if you guys follow me on Instagram, please do. My Instagram handle's right down there, at Carving Up Podcast. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. There's no way. But follow me on Instagram because I've been on the road, been on vacation, and I was at Epic Universe yesterday at Universal, which is an insane theme park. If you ever get a chance to go, do it. It's unbelievable. But we've got so much to talk about. We're obviously going to talk Cowboys, Eagles to start. The biggest comeback of the weekend, the biggest comeback in the history of the Dallas Cowboys. Kansas City, by the skin of their teeth, are very much alive. I'll discuss that. Their close win over the Colts in overtime. Also get to why Stafford, to me, is the clear MVP. Matt Stafford, the Rams, who are cruising right now. Get to that. Also talk about Shedeur Sanders. His debut looked pretty solid, and that's what was asked of him, and he delivered in that regard. Talk about him. Talk about my Steelers giving up yet another 30 points to the Chicago Bears. Discuss that. And again, this is really, I'll be honest, because we're not going to be doing a show tomorrow. Obviously not one on Thanksgiving. Probably do a Black Friday show reacting to the 3 Thanksgiving games and the do the Vol View and Bears-Eagles reaction, like those things. So we'll have a show on Black Friday. But because there's not going to be a show between tomorrow and Friday, I figured might as well incorporate the Wednesday elements of the show. So we're going to have Bryson's Best 10. We're going to have Carving Up the Context. So call it what you will. It is the Carving It Up super extra big mega huge big show. That's what we're doing. So very excited. Again, this show is not live. I'm recording this at about 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if there's anything in the world of sports that has happened, at the time you are watching this, I'm aware of it, just not the time that you are watching me. Any breaking news, if I don't talk about it, that's because at the time you're watching me, I'm not aware of it. It's 10 a.m. But let's just go and get started on what was an insane day in the NFL. But first, America's team, boy, what a win for them.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Dallas down 21-0 to the Philadelphia Eagles, comes back to win a 24-21 walk-off field goal by Brandon Aubrey. Now, anybody that's watched this show for any length of time knows that I've been a fan. I'm the very first segment I ever did in the history of Carving It Up back in October 21st, 2019. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember I was telling somebody about this the other day. I made sure that in my take career that I'd start 1 for 1. And that was that Dak Prescott is better than Carson Wentz. Remember that was a discussion? That was weird. But I've always been a fan of Dak Prescott. So do me a favor. Say it proud. Say it loud and do me a favor. Please say it real proud. Rain Dakota Prescott. Put up his numbers against the Philadelphia Eagles. 3 touchdown passes, 1 interception. That was a bad pick at the goal line, to, I believe it was to Blankenship. 63% completion, 354 passing yards, 103 rating, 60 QBR. And you see there at the bottom, became the Cowboys all-time passing leader in the history of the franchise. And, of course, a game-winning drive after trailing 21-0. And, I wish I could tell you that, actually, I really don't, that I'm surprised by this. That Dak going out here and balling against the Philadelphia Eagles just blew my mind. A defense that has been red hot, a pass rush that has been off the charts this season. The secondary has been great. And I wish I could tell you that it caught me off guard, but it does not, because the reason that I took Dallas plus 3.5 and went outright came down to one simple fact. A, Dallas is a more desperate team. B, Dak going back to his rookie season, and we're the NFCs, they will blow your mind about how insane they are. But Dak against the Philadelphia Eagles, mind you, a Philadelphia Eagles team that by Dak's second year in the league were a Super Bowl champion. And they've gone to 2 more Super Bowls and won another one. So Philadelphia has been the standard in the NFC East and one of the standards in the NFL in the span of Dak's career. But when Dak plays them, despite having a significant disadvantage at owner, GM, offensive line, in some cases coach, defense, Rain Dakota Prescott. You see what he did against the Philadelphia Eagles over the course of his career. He's owned them. 30 total touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 66% completion, 262 passers per game, 99 rating, and a record of 10-2. He's won double the games that he's lost against this team. And as I also said on Friday's show, there was no way on planet Earth that Dak was going to get swept by the Eagles. You know why? Because it's never happened. It's never happened in Dak's tenure. Never been swept by the Eagles. Never been swept by anybody in the NFCs. Matter of fact, Dak has owned the NFCs over the course of his career. Can we just go and show the numbers? Last night, or this is his last 19 home games, I guess, against the NFCs. 53 total touchdowns, 11 picks, completing 70% of his throws, 293 pass yards per game, 102 rating, 19-0 is Dak Prescott in his last 19 home games against the NFC East. And I think what you're seeing right now, do we have another graphic? I guess we do have another graphic. Put that one up. Dak against the NFC East over the course of his entire career. 96 touchdowns, 23 picks, 66% completion, 258 passing yards, 102 rating, a win percentage of 800. He's got an 800 winning percentage against the division, which is the second highest win percentage against your division opponent since the merger, second only to Patrick Mahomes. So he's ahead of Brady, who owned the AFC East, as we all know, which was a much weaker division than what Dak is playing now. So Dak's the second greatest division quarterback of all time. But I think what you saw yesterday and what you've seen over the course of this season is it has been, I don't want to say we haven't given enough credit because we're always talking about the Cowboys. They're always on our radar. But it has been about as chaotic a season in Dallas as any year Dak has been with the team. So you start with, you hire a new head coach who no one really believed in from the jump. We'll give Brian Schottenheimer credit later in the segment, but people are like, you just hired in-house. Brian Schottenheimer wasn't exactly getting coaching calls from other teams. The other teams were going after Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn and Mike Vrabel, and you hired Brian Schottenheimer. Did you want to be cheap? Okay. Although we're not crazy about that. Then you go through a draft that people are like, we weren't crazy about it. Then you get to, of course, the infamous training camp situation. Micah Parsons asked for a trade from the team. Jerry Jones grants him his wish a few weeks later, trades him to the Packers, and everyone's like, the Cowboys are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. And not pick them to make the playoffs post Micah Parsons trade. I said, listen, there are certain quarterbacks, folks, you will never be bad with. You just won't. Like, forget the top three, like elite of the elite. In my opinion, it's Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar. There's certain guys you're just not going to be bad with. You are never going to be a bad football team with Dak Prescott. You're just not. The leadership is too great. The accuracy, able to make just about every single throw in and outside of the pocket, make plays with his legs, which he's shown more this year. It's not going to happen. And by the way, you made the move for George Pickens. We'll talk about Pickens in just a second. But Pickens, who was a head case in Pittsburgh, and I'm a Steelers fan, and I maintain to this day, I'm still in favor of the Steelers moving on from George Pickens. When you know some of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes with Pickens in Pittsburgh, she was showing up late on game days. Tomlin was out here giving information to Tracy Wolfson of CBS, like, hey, Pickens is being a limited snap count, and then Pickens doesn't show up. It's like, bro, what are you doing? And then you have all the incidents with getting into fans and officials and cost your team 15 yards. George Pickens was a head case. If he's improved, kudos to him. But the Steelers were right in making that move. And Dak's made that work. And Dak's made a bad pass protecting offensive line work, and a rookie head coach work, and a terrible defense, which has been better, but over the course of this year, a terrible defense work. And they're 5-5, and they're in the playoff hunt. And they just beat the defending champions after being down 21-0. And I think what you've seen from Dak this year is, you got the passing of Marshawn Neal, like all of this chaos ranging from coaching hirings that people at the time were not crazy about, a trade for Pickens, which was very much like kind of I'm not sure if this will work. He's in a contract year. We'll see. There's the Micah Parsons trade. There's the tragic passing of one of the Dallas Cowboys defensive players. Like, it's been a very tumultuous last 10 months for Dallas. And who steadies it? Who keeps, hey, take a deep breath. We're all good. Focus on the task remaining at hand. But reign Dakota Prescott. And it's why I say I'm going to talk about Matt Stafford later in the show. I think Stafford's the clear MVP right now. Drake Mays, to me, number 2. I would then put probably, although Jonathan Taylor was not very good on Sunday, I think you can make a legitimate case. If we're talking most valuable player, if we're taking the V into specificity, or not specificity, but into if you're taking it literally, which I always have on the show on any sport in terms of most valuable player, I think it would be dishonest to not put Dak at least in the top 5. Because let's show what Dak has done this season. He's been one of the best quarterbacks on the planet in 2025. 2nd in pass touchdowns, 5th in completion, 3rd in pass yards, 7th in rating, number 1 in the NFL in QBR. is that in almost every single game the Cowboys have won this year, and even in some of the games that they've lost or tied in the case of Green Bay, they've needed Dak to play A-plus football in order for them to win. And by and large, he's done it. He's had a couple hiccups here and there against Chicago, Denver, Arizona. After that, he's been nothing short of sensational. And so anybody who has ever questioned at any particular point in time, especially within the last few years, is Dak that good? Is he really elite? I said coming into the season, which is why Dak was going to have a huge year. The last time this man played a fully healthy season with a mid-running game, a head coach that were y'all crazy about Mike McCarthy, a GM that almost none of us believe in, and one legitimate receiver, CeeDee Lamb, the rest, guys. Dak Prescott finished second place for most valuable player. He's an elite quarterback. He is comfortably in the top 10 quarterbacks. The question is he pushing top 5? He's indisputably top 10. That's been the case for years now. I've been saying it on the show for some time. That was a gutty win by the Cowboys. It was a game for Dallas in which it was kind of the testing the mettle and the emotional strength of this team. And Dak kind of talked about that after the game. Yeah. If we have Dak, do we have the Dak soundbite?
Yeah, that game was needed. And no, never blinked, never had any doubt, and 1,000% believed from the beginning. I mean, there was times, right? I'm telling guys, believe. And then there was a moment there in the fourth quarter where a book goes, believe. And I go, I know. Like, we're done with the believe. We've believed long enough, and we've got ourselves back in this game. Like, now you've got to know. And so that's just it's a testament to this brotherhood, sticking together, going down 21 against the defending Super Bowl champs in a division game is tough. And like you said, I'm sure there was fans. I'm sure there was people, right? Oh, this is over. These guys are going to run off. But defense. I can't give them enough credit. We wouldn't have won this game without the opportunities that they gave us over and over again. It was also moments of just, when they get a stop or something happen, whether it was Quentin or Donovan, one of those guys telling me, we got you. And then when they did stop, I'm telling them, we told you. Just continuation of what we did last week and just sticking together. And like I said, it's about the brotherhood. And trust me, once again, we're always going to do it and do it for Marshawn. And he was felt tonight, and I'm sure he was playing right there alongside with us.
And this is what makes Dak such a great leader, is because of the tragedy, obviously, of Marshawn Nealon, which we've talked about in the show that happened a couple of weeks ago. Like, if there's ever a guy that you want to lead a franchise, to lead a group of men in that type of situation, it's the guy you just heard in that soundbite. And it's frankly, it's why I've always believed he was elite. It's why I've always said that, like, that's a guy that you can absolutely win a Super Bowl with. Whether the front office will put him in position to, Jerry Jones not exactly known for that. But I will say kudos to Jerry. The Pickens move has worked. Thus far, some of the moves on the defense has been indisputably better. And we'll see if that continues. You still got to play Kansas City and Detroit. And you're still playing some good offenses down the road. But if you're telling me Dallas can make the playoffs, I think Dallas has a little bit of room for error. I think they can lose one more game the rest of the year, and that's it. I think 10-6-1 will get them in, because I think some of the teams above them could fall, such as Detroit, who they play in a couple of weeks, San Francisco, who won last night against Carolina. We'll talk about that and recap the rest of Week 12 around the National Football League. I think is very, very much on the board. But we always see a couple teams kind of fade out. One team get really hot second half or last quarter of the year. I think that very well could be the Dallas Cowboys and rain Dakota Prescott. How could you be shocked with what he's doing? It's a beautiful thing to see. It really, really is. And one of the reasons, and then we'll move on to Philly real quick. One of the reasons that's gotten to this point, credit where it's due. George Pickens has been sensational. He's been one of the best receivers in the sport this year. Third in receiving touchdowns. Second, folks, George Pickens, one of two receivers this year to already have over 1,000 yards. The other, Jackson Smith-Njigba of the Seattle Seahawks. He's got 1,054 receiving yards, which, by the way, only 28 receiving yards short of all Steelers receivers combined. So nice job, Mike Tomlin. And 67 receptions, which is 8th in the National Football League. So Pickens has been sensational. He has been better than CeeDee Lamb, who's had a bad case of the drops this year and last year. He's got to work on that not being an issue. But my gosh, that was rain Dakota Prescott. Are you shocked? Especially as against Philly. Again, Dak owns Philly. That's what it is. He owns Philly. He's got a winning record against Jalen Hurts. He owns Philly. What can I say? All right, let's transition to quickly on Philadelphia before we move on to Kansas City. The only reason I wouldn't panic too much is precisely because you play Dak Prescott and you never sweep Dak Prescott. You just don't. He's too great of a quarterback. He owns you too much. It doesn't happen. Because people are blaming Kevin Patullo, which, by the way, I've been critical of him on the show. I think the conservative play calling was odd, especially when Jalen Hurts had it rolling in the first 3 drives when Philadelphia scored all 3 times. Jalen was accurate, and Jalen even over the course of the game, it had the touchdown passes to A.J. Brown and others. I think with this Eagles offense, the thing that is holding them back is the thing that made them great last year. The offensive line is a shell of itself, and that some of that does come down to offensive line, run blocking schemes, things of that sort. And Saquon Barkley, I don't know if it's partly because of the offensive line. I know that has something to do with it. I don't know if it's you go for 2,000 yards last year and then 4 playoff games. Like, does that wear and tear carry on into the following season? I don't know what's going on. Saquon's averaging 3.7 yards a carry. Like, he has not been one of the 15 best running backs in the NFL after being far and away, with respect to Derrick Henry, far and away the best last year. And so, that's the issue. Whether anyone's blaming Jalen Hurts, you didn't watch that game yesterday. Jalen took some sacks, to be fair, but that was because Dallas's defensive line, credit where it's due, worked Philadelphia's O-line. And that's been the case with Philly's O-line most of the season. And so Philly's got some problems. Jalen Hurts ain't one of them. And I think one fair question to ask, and I've given him respect where it's due, Nick Sirianni. But if you are an offensive guy, the OC's the problem, or part of the problem. Kevin Patullo, that's because you don't call plays. You don't put together personnel. Like, this is kind of your job if you're Nick Sirianni. So we'll see how it materializes. But it's a devastating loss for Philly in the sense, and we'll talk about the Rams later, in the sense that, okay, now they're a game back of LA. They have the tiebreaker of LA because they beat them in week 3, but for the way the Rams are playing right now, it's not an ideal situation to be in. And now Philadelphia, by the way, how good is this game all of a sudden? Black Friday against the Chicago Bears. That game's at the Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles are about 6.5, 7-point favorites in that game. So that'll be a really fun matchup. I'll predict that game at the end of the show. Almost spoil my pick. Predict that game at the end of the show. But that is I don't want to say it's a must win for Philly. They're still going to win the NFC East. Dallas is not going to run them down. But there are some legitimate questions about just how they are getting absolutely dominated up front on the offensive side of the ball. And that's been an issue for them all season. So like I said, the show's not live, so feel free to chime in the comment section. We'd really, really appreciate it. Get the engagement for this live up. Like, share, subscribe, the whole bit. Helps the channel grow exponentially. Greatly appreciate it. By the way, the TikTok page is really doing well right now. So the TikTok username right down there, the TikTok handle, Carving Up Podcast, which is exactly the same for Instagram and YouTube. X is Carving Up Pod. So be sure to check all of those things out. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I had a line a year and a half ago after they beat San Francisco to win their 3rd Super Bowl. And I said, I will not bet against Patrick Mahomes until he gives me a reason to. I'm just not going to do it. There's certain athletes you do not bet against under any circumstances. It's Tom Brady. It's Michael Jordan, LeBron, Steph, Kobe, John Elway. You don't bet against these guys. And Patrick Mahomes is in that class based on his resume, based on his clutch history. I would be lying to you, the audience, if watching that game on Sunday, Chiefs in Indianapolis, and it's 20-9 in the 4th quarter, and Kansas City can't sustain drives, finish drive. Mahomes obviously had the pick to a defensive lineman early in the game. Kareem Hunt fumbles early in the 4th quarter as Kansas City is about to score. At that point in time, I'm like, hand to God, I'm thinking, I know I say not to doubt this team. I think I'm just about out. I really did. But as is the case in any great, superhero movie, or at least in the story where you feel like you have a good sense of who the characters are and what they're about, and it's going to sound harsh, but darn it, it's true. In the 4th quarter, so more specifically after the score was 20-9 Colts, Patrick Mahomes turned into Patrick Mahomes, and Daniel Jones turned back into Daniel Jones. And we'll show you Patrick Mahomes' numbers after trailing 20-9. He was sensational. So like that's over the last, quarter and change. Of course, overtime as well. So about a quarter and a half, let's call it. So no touchdowns, no picks. However, did lead the Chiefs to 13 unanswered points to win the game, 65% completion, 250 total yards, was clutch with his arm and his legs. The throw to Xavier Worthy, who made a big time catch on fourth down in the fourth quarter, was huge. Kansas City, I said this last week after they lost to Denver, and it's like, oh, their season's kind of on the brink right now, is that when you're talking about a team that we're so used to, being just this great clutch team, they had broken the record for consecutive one-score wins, and I defended them all of last year. Like, okay, the point differential is better this year. Great. They score more points. They score more points than they did last year through the first 10, 11 games. They give up less points than they did the first 10, 11 games. Like, the numbers are better this year, which is allegedly what people wanted last year. But they were winning these games because they were making the play, because Mahomes would make a play, or Kelsey or Chris Jones, or the special teams blocking a kick or making a kick, regardless of what it was. And they weren't doing that this year. Matter of fact, they were actually finding ways to lose, which is very un-Chiefs-like. Sunday, that was a very different story. And to the Daniel Jones portion of it, Daniel Jones, back to Daniel Jones, and we could show you the numbers after going up 20-9. I mean, there you go. No touchdowns, no picks. Man was 33% completion, 17 passing yards, 42 passer rating, and the Colts went scoreless the rest of the way. Keep in mind, that was the number one scoring offense in the entire NFL was Indianapolis. And give credit to Spags. Excuse me. Spags was very much, hold on, let me get a drink of water. Sorry about that. Spags, it was clearly, and you understand why. This is kind of the game plan to everybody throws out against the Colts. Number 28, Jonathan Taylor, the guy who's getting MVP buzz, he ain't beating us. And Daniel Jones is going to get some good looks early. Daniel Jones is going to be accurate, to start the game, to Pierce and Warren, all these guys. But as the game goes on, as coaches make adjustments, it's not that Steichen's not able to. It's that Steichen doesn't have the guy to get you across the finish line on the road at Arrowhead Stadium, even with an 11-point fourth quarter lead, in large part because the defensive coordinator on the other side, Spags, we know he likes to bring those third down blitzes. We know he is very smart with his game plans, stopping Jonathan Taylor yesterday, who was a no-show, yesterday, or on Sunday, rather. That was a very Chiefs-like win, and you got to be thinking to yourself, oh boy, if the Colts beat them, they're 5-6. By the way, they got a short week. They got to go on the road to Dallas. I'll predict that game toward the end of the show. It's not looking so good. God knows they're not winning they're certainly not winning the AFC West. It's just a matter, can they get in the postseason? And even today, they're in 10th place in the AFC. But watching that game, when that Butker kick goes through at the end, you're like, oh boy, you had a chance to kill them, and now they're still alive. And Kansas City was my Super Bowl pick before the season started. Certainly I'm, hanging on to that. A big reason I say that at this point, going back to my initial, take the start of the segment. Until Patrick Mahomes is knocked out, until the Chiefs season is literally over, or until they're down 34-0 in the Super Bowl against Philadelphia in the second half, until that happens, you cannot count them out. You just can't. I mean, I've said we don't have the numbers on this particular segment. We've done it in previous years on the show. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in NFL history when it comes to coming back from double-digit deficits. The best we've ever seen at it. And you saw that with his arm, with his legs. He was smart with the football. And Kansas City, by the way, got jobbed early. People talk about, the league is rigged for the Chiefs. Did you see that Kelsey touchdown they wiped off the board early because of a penalty? I think it was on Jawan Taylor that clearly was not so. Kareem Hunt, by the way, ran the football effectively. Kareem Hunt had over 100 rushing yards. The fumble in the fourth, which was brutal, but he made up for it, with the rushing touchdown in the fourth quarter. That was, if Kansas City's found a running game. Now, Trey Smith's going to be out, for the foreseeable future, certainly this week against Dallas, which is unfortunate for the interior of that offensive line. But, I mean, that was gut check time. That was, do you really want this? Do you really want, to continue to be a Super Bowl contender? And the Kansas City Chiefs said, yeah, we've been that over the course of our entire history. And Patrick Mahomes talked about it after the game.
This is exactly what we needed to win against a really good football team, and the game's not going your way. You could have folded in that situation and kind of been the rest of the season. The guys responded, and and then found a way to win on every single unit. I mean, offense, we found a way at the end. Defense stood tall multiple times to give us chances. And then Harrison and Ariza did a great job flipping the field and making field goals. So we needed a win like this, and now let's just try to build off of it.
Yeah, and we'll see how they do that again. A huge game. How good is that game now between Kansas City and Dallas? Not just because of the fact that those are the two most popular NFL franchises right now. Dallas, for obvious reasons, they're America's team, and Kansas City's been America's team over the course of the last, 7 years or so. Or really, I guess 8 years since Mahomes became the starter in 2018. But it's the fact that both teams desperately need this win. Kansas City is staying in the playoff hunt. Same case with the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to be a fun one. Kansas City in this game. Let me check the line. Predicted at the end of the show that Kansas City is a 3-point favorite in Dallas at Jerry World. So, oh my gosh, that's going to be a good one. But some of it too. Sometimes sports can be complicated, man. It can. We do this analysis and we look into the numbers and we look into all of these things, the film and injuries and who's in, who's out, records. We look at all of those things, but sometimes sports is actually quite simple. Sometimes sports does come down to, okay, money on the line. Who's got, it sounds cheesy, it sounds corny, and you can't measure it with a single statistic. Who's got the it factor? Who's got it in them? Who's got the clutch genes, so to speak, to get the job done when it absolutely matters the most, when your team desperately needs it. And I said, at the beginning of the segment, Mahomes turned back into Mahomes, Daniel Jones turned back into Daniel Jones. I thought the Colts had a lot of matchups that they could exploit coming into this game. I did. I thought the fact that Kansas City's offensive line had been struggling, I think the Colts could attack that. Daniel Jones was struggling against a pass rush. Kansas City really doesn't have a pass rush. I thought this could go the other way, but I picked Kansas City for the simple fact that, okay, the Chiefs season could end at any point from this point forward. Is it going to be at home against Daniel Jones? Nothing. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm hating on Daniel Jones. He's had an excellent season. Kudos to him. He potentially has earned a second contract with the Indianapolis Colts. But let's not overstate this. He is tied for 12th in touchdown passes. He's been good. He's been solid. Jonathan Taylor is the lifeblood of that offense. And when Jonathan Taylor doesn't have it going, which in this game, obviously, 16 carries for 58 yards, Kansas City sold out to stop him. That's why Daniel Jones got off to a hot start early. But kind of tailed off late. That's how it goes for Indianapolis. But kudos to Kansas City. Gutsy win. And oh my gosh, I cannot wait. Oh, that Thanksgiving game. Kansas City, Dallas. Kudos to you, NFL schedule makers. That'll be one of the highest rated NFL regular season games of all time. There's no question about it. Okay, we're going to take a 1-minute break on the show. When we come back, how about Shedeur Sanders? Looked pretty solid in his first ever NFL start. Talk about that as well as the Steelers just never cease to frustrate me. That Steelers defense. I was thinking it was back. No, it's not back. But kudos, some kudos, where it's to the Chicago Bears. Also about the Rams, who are on a roll down the tracks and could be rolling down the tracks to a potential Super Bowl. Talk about all that after a 1-minute break here on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving It Up again. As I said earlier, pre-recorded show. So I'm recording this right now. It's a little after 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Appreciate everybody stopping by. On the road again. But here in Florida, getting the chance to catch up with some old friends that I used to work with at Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run during the college program. It's been fantastic. Shout out to Danny. Shout out to August. Shout out to hopefully some other people I'll be meeting over the course, reuniting with over the course of this week. But it has been absolutely sensational. To be back, to be in this environment. And it was funny. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier this year when I was working here, and I said, I think I'm going to retire here. I know I'm 22 and I'm not necessarily supposed to be thinking about retirement, especially in this economy. But it's pretty great. It is Central Florida. Tennessee's beautiful. I love Tennessee. But Florida, whew, the weather year round, tons of options, stuff to do. Oh my gosh. It's great, great stuff. And I just feel like I have a whole different energy when I'm in the state. It's amazing to be here. So very excited about that. And again, no show tomorrow. So again, basically what we're doing is we're combining Monday show with Wednesday show. So carving up the context coming up a little later, Bryson's best 10 coming up later, and predictions for the 3 Thanksgiving games and the Black Friday game. So again, super mega big packed loaded show. Very, very excited. Let's talk though about Shedeur Sanders. So I said we've talked about Shedeur Sanders all of last week, all 3 shows. He came in relief against Baltimore, had a few moments here and there, but struggled. It was a tough spot. He'd never played with the first team guys. It's the Baltimore Ravens. We know that they have a great defensive culture. It's in the cold in Cleveland, cold off the bench. It's a tough spot to come into. But this week I said needs to be a very, very, very different story. Is that can you outplay Dillon Gabriel, who is averaging 117 pass yards per game, 59% completion? Wasn't very good. Can you at least match or exceed that in your first NFL start? The Raiders are a god-awful defense. You got all week to practice with the first team guys, right? You're on the road, but it's in a climate control environment. It's in Vegas, and let's be honest, most of the Raiders fans, they're still in Oakland, and a lot of them are still in Los Angeles. And Shedeur Sanders, he had to be at least solid, and that's what he was. Show the numbers for a first NFL start. Not too shabby. 1 touchdown, which came on a screen pass to my man. Shout out to Dylan Sampson from the Tennessee Volunteers. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 55% completion, 209 passing yards, 87 rating, QBR 8. I'm usually a fan of the QBR stat. That is way too low. I don't want to act like Shedeur was just amazing or anything, but that's way too low. It should be at least like in the 40 range. And he's, of course, the first Browns quarterback to win his first NFL start since 1995. And I think what you saw on Sunday is all of the things you hope Shedeur Sanders would be, which, by the way, Kevin Stefanski, announced yesterday. Dillon Gabriel, he is clear concussion protocol, but Shedeur Sanders is the starter next week against the San Francisco 49ers. And this is, I think, anybody that knows anything about football, judging the Browns quarterback situation, regardless of where you thought Shedeur should have been drafted relative to where he was drafted, everybody with a brain that knows anything about football knew this. Joe Flacco is going to be the starter. Check. Dillon Gabriel's drafted higher than Shedeur, had a better preseason than Shedeur. He was going to be the next guy. Check. And because of Dillon Gabriel's, nothing against the kid, but physical limitations, not a great arm, doesn't move well. What is he, 5'10"? It wasn't going to last forever. So take Dillon Gabriel out. Shedeur Sanders is going to be in for the last 6 or 7 games or so. And based on what he does, the Browns are going to see what they have potentially as a future franchise quarterback, or they draft somebody next year based on the performance of one Shedeur Sanders. And I think you saw the throw. Oh my gosh. The throw on the run, moving to his right all the way down the field to Jerry Jeudy, who had a really dumb turnover at the end of the first half. Lord, what are you, high stepping at the 40-yard line? What are you doing, Jerry? But still, rolling to his right. Like I said back in college, I thought Shedeur Sanders had a good arm. He did not have a great arm in my estimation. That is as tough a throw as there is to make. Moving to your right, not throwing across your body per se, but throwing to the opposite, throwing to the opposite side, throwing to the left side across your body, 50 yards down the field, hitting the guy in stride. That's an NFL throw. Doing it against pressure, which one of the things that I said was in Shedeur's favor coming out of college. Hey, NFL pressure is different, obviously, in terms of dealing with defensive lines, but he dealt with a bad offensive line in Colorado. He does. Like that's not new to him. That's not a foreign concept to him. He wasn't like at Ohio State or at LSU with these great offensive lines or all these great schools. Colorado's a good program, but I just saw the other day, and I love Deion Sanders. No smoke towards Deion. I love Prime. But I saw something about how Colorado has like the 97th recruiting class this year. So Shedeur and Travis Hunter, of course, help bring that program to, this is kind of an interesting situation. They were in the Big 12 contention conversation going into November of last year. Is that we know the situation in Cleveland has always been toxic. That's always been the case. Particularly when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks, is that outside of, Bernie Kosar, which big shout out Bernie Kosar, great news in regards to that man's health. God bless him. So happy to hear that. Outside of really Bernie Kosar and Baker Mayfield, who of course they kicked out the back door and gave a guy with very questionable off the field history, to say the very least, the first fully guaranteed contract in NFL history. They don't know how to do quarterback right. Is that with all of the noise surrounding this pick, some of it external, some of it internal, some of it caused by Shedeur, some of it caused by others in reaction to Shedeur. Very confident, which I love, of course. Knows who he is, comfortable in his own skin. Hey, I want that in a franchise quarterback. I want that in an athlete. Unfortunately, it rubs some people the wrong way. The production's got to be there. And to Shedeur's credit, and he said this last week, I know I'm the guy, but I got to show it. The NFL is the ultimate meritocracy. You are not handed a single thing in this league. You got to go earn it. And Shedeur said that last week. Hey, I know I'm that guy. I know what I'm capable of. I just got to show it. And for his first start, not bad. Not bad at all. I had Shedeur as a first round, worst case, second round talent in what was a very weak quarterback draft. The fact that he fell as low as he did, especially below Tyler Shuck and Dylan Gabriel and Jalen Miller, what are we doing? Below Jackson Dart, I was like, I don't. At the time, I didn't necessarily agree with it. Let's see, is our camera in? Is camera focusing? Here we go. Camera's back. But Jackson Dart's had a solid rookie season. I thought he was as productive as you could have asked for a guy making his first start in the NFL. And let's be honest, the Browns won the game against Vegas because the defense had 10 sacks, because Myles Garrett is going to shatter, and I mean obliterate, the NFL single-season sack record. I saw Strahan on Fox the other day. He was like, sack record? It was nice knowing you. So that's gone. By the way, TJ Watt shares the record with Strahan, to be fair. Let's give some respect to TJ Watt. But yeah, he's going to obliterate. That Browns defense is off the charts great. And that's a good thing they got going in their favor. And the test coming up for Shedeur, you got the San Francisco 49ers. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that is a road game for one Shedeur Sanders. So let me double check. I'm pretty sure that's on the road. Or no, that's at home. Okay, my bad. That game is at home against the 49ers. San Francisco right now is a 5.5-point favorite. We'll see that line. If it changes at all, that's a test. Robert Saleh is one of the smartest defensive minds in the entire NFL. What that man is doing with that Fred Warner, Nick Bosa is nothing short of miraculous coaching. Again, no one who's being reasonable is asking you to light the world on fire, to be the superstar, 4 touchdowns, no pick. Can he be accurate? Can he be solid? Again, the Cleveland was probably about to go up 21-3 in that game against the Raiders if Jerry Jeudy doesn't make a really dumb mistake, with about 4 minutes to go, I believe, in the first half. But can he be in command of the offense, which he was on Sunday? First NFL start, he was solid. Had an ugly interception. He did. I don't want to sweep that under the rug. He had an ugly pick. But by and large, it's not like Cleveland's got the greatest receivers in the world. They darn sure don't have a good offensive line. Against similar competition, the Vegas Raiders, pretty good. So pulling for Shedeur, and Shedeur after the game was talking about it. Again, he rubs some people the wrong way. I find the kid to be extremely likable. Here was him after the win against the Vegas Raiders.
Everybody's not in everybody's not in the best situation, but it's no excuse. You got to go out there and perform. There's no choice, there's no question. Nobody cares if this was 1 week of prep. Who cares? So a lot of people want to see me fail, and it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen.
Well, I like his temperament. I'm not saying he's handled everything perfectly. Again, I was not a fan of the basically being mute when Rex Ryan was talking trash about him, which again, if Rex Ryan goes after you on television, I said this to all NFL players, ignore him. His analysis is terrible. Don't listen to what he is saying. Okay. It does not matter. It does not hold weight. Do not listen to him. Not that Rex Ryan is not a great coach, but he's a horrible analyst. But that press conference where Shedeur was Like, I was like, what are you doing? What is this? Like, that didn't help his cause. Player cards right in the locker room, player cards right at the media. Thus far, he's been great with the media over the course of the last week, taking accountability for shortcomings, taking accountability of, hey, my performance is on me. Going out there and performing. I'm maybe I'm in the minority. I find this kid so easy to root for. And I know there's all the conspiracy theory stuff like, oh, Stefanski wants him to fail. Stefanski wants to keep his job, guys. The man's a 2-time coach of the year. The man got the Browns to the playoffs twice. The guy can coach. Let's stop with this Kevin Stefanski's no good nonsense. That's ridiculous. Just because he didn't want Shedeur ahead of Dylan Gabriel, guess what? The rest of the league didn't. This is not a Kevin Stefanski thing. That's the whole NFL. Was evidently kind of low on Shedeur. Lower than I certainly would have been. But that's not just a Kevin Stefanski thing. The guy can coach, and Shedeur earned the right to start next week. So Kevin Stefanski's starting. Like that's how the NFL works. And so, Cleveland, sitting right now at 3-8, they've got 6 games, left to go the rest of the way. My guess is Shedeur starts all of them. And if that's the case, if he performs well, Cleveland's got 2 first-round picks next year. Maybe they build around Shedeur Sanders. As a Steelers fan, I'm not looking forward to playing him in Week 17. I'm not. I'd much rather play Dylan Gabriel. Saw that, a few weeks ago. Steelers were great against him. So, but kudos to Shedeur. He did what he needed to do in order to quiet some of the doubt. But next week, that's a test. You're at home, but the San Francisco 49ers are coming to town. And that defense with that defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh, different challenge. We'll see how Shedeur handles it. A team that is, we talk about being challenged. Let's keep it a buck, ladies and gentlemen. The Rams should be 11-0 right now. Like it feels like it's kind of it's like the NFL God said, like, we're gonna make it interesting by having that 9-2 and have Philadelphia on their tails, and hey, here comes the Chicago Bears, and Green Bay might do something, and let's make it interesting. Seattle in their own division is only game back. They play the Rams in about a month. Like, let's make it interesting, because if the Rams were 11-0, it'd be like, okay, it's inevitable. They're just going to go win the Super Bowl. They're going to win their second title in the last 5 seasons. This team is, I know Baker Mayfield gets hurt in the first half, but they were dominating before that. You're seeing a combination with this Rams team. Speed of youth, guys like, obviously, the 2 pass rushers, Jared Verse and Byron Young. Emmanuel Forbes, how about this pickup? Emmanuel Forbes has been a shut-down corner, for this Rams team this season. He's been amazing this year. But you also get the veteran leadership. You got the Matthew Staffords of the world. You've got the Cooper Kupps of the world. Obviously, Sean McVay. It's hard to believe, as young as he is, but this is his 9th year in the NFL coaching, right? Like, it's hard to believe. Defensively, off the charts, number 1 scoring defense in the entire National Football League. Offensively, Stafford's 8 for 9 to Devontae Adams for 8 touchdowns when targeting him in the red zone. Puka Nacua, enough said, he's amazing. They run the football well. They bring in this 12, 13 personnel packages that they do. Spread it, they can spread you out. They can play tough inside. This is, you'll see where I've got them on Bryson's best 10. Spoiler, it's high. But I think for all of the great components of this Rams team, I think McVay is the second best coach in football to Andy Reid, and I've said that for about a year. I think McVay is one of the best coaches of the last quarter century. He's amazing. Setting the culture, smart play caller, the whole bit. O-line's fantastic. D-line's fantastic. Secondary has upgraded tremendously over the course of this year. We know Les Snead's an amazing general manager, wide receiving core, all of it. It's, with respect to Drake May, to Jonathan Taylor, who again took a hit on Sunday in terms of his MVP case, Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott. Right now, the race is not over. We still have a whole month and a half left of the season. It is not over. As of right now, season ends today. First of all, to be quite early. Second of all, Stafford's a runaway MVP. It's not close. We can show you his numbers over the course of this season and then the last 20 games. So Stafford this season, you see it right there. He's number 1 by a mile in pass touchdowns. He's got 32nd place, has 23. Number 1 in pass touchdowns, 6th in pass yards per game, 6th in completion percentage, number 1 in pass rating, 5th in QBR. And Stafford's last 20 games, this goes back to last season, this goes back to the 2 playoff games against Minnesota and Philadelphia. Stafford's his last 20. This is insane. This is a season and a quarter. The man has 45 touchdowns and 3 picks. It's unbelievable. The man has a 15-1 touchdown to interception ratio. That doesn't even make sense. 243 pass yards, 65% completion, 110 rating, 16-4 record. He's the MVP. Like, again, I've said it since probably week 2. If you told me that Matthew Stafford, if I was ignorant to the situation, if you told me Matthew Stafford, had a injury during training camp to his back as an older player in year 17 in his late 30s, I'd have never believed you. The arm is as live as ever. He's moving well. He's, again, strictly a pocket guy, not necessarily making a ton of throws in the run, but is in as much command of offense as any quarterback in the sport right now. I mean, he's been sensational. And I think what you see just by the year with Stafford is how much, and not to say, Detroit's obviously turned their organization around. I've given them tons of love on the show for doing so. Y'all know that. But just how much Detroit wasted this man for 12 years. Like, imagine if Matthew Stafford had been, let's say the Rams organization, they were the St. Louis Rams, obviously, in 2009 when Stafford was taken first out of Georgia. But let's say the Rams organization was what they were, or at least were close to what they were when Stafford came in. Are we sure we would not be having discussions about this man as, well, there's Brady and there's Montana and Manning and Elway and Mahomes and Marino and all these guys, Rodgers. Are we sure he's not in that discussion? He's won a Super Bowl. For what it's worth, last year in the snow with multiple turnovers, not even playing that well, and Saquon going off, they almost beat Philadelphia if Jalen Carter doesn't make a play late. And now this year, they are, to me, the clear-cut favorites. Philly was my pick for the season. I said that we'd get a rematch. Still think that might happen. To me, they're a clear-cut favorite in the NFC. Like, where's the weakness? Coaching staff, A+, quarterback, A+, running game, B+, A-, offensive line, A, receiving core, A, or to A+, defense, A+, number 1 scoring defense in football. Show me the weakness. But again, I keep saying this with Stafford. This was the same guy who was the best quarterback in high school, college, and with the first overall pick in the draft. The arm is as live as ever. We're talking about somebody who has been one of the great late career quarterbacks of all time. Obviously, Brady, that goes without saying. Drew Brees was an MVP candidate, his third to last year, in the league. Rodgers was winning MVPs in his mid to late 30s. But Elway was winning Super Bowls in his late 30s. Peyton Manning, same thing. This is insane. It's not like Tampa Bay's just got this god-awful defense. I know they gave up 40-plus to the Buffalo Bills last week. That was more Josh Allen being Superman than anything. I mean, 34-7. I know Baker got hurt in the first half, but it was lopsided even then. I mean, you're watching the first 2 drives. And there's certain games you watch, you're like, okay, there's just a talent gap. There's a speed gap. There's a game plan gap. And it's not even that Bowles is a bad coach or Baker's a bad quarterback. Just the matchups favor the Rams. And the NFC, one thing that I think almost helps the Rams in a weird way is how good the NFC West is, in the sense that, okay, moving forward, you've got Seattle on your tail. San Francisco's playing good. You've already played all your games against the Niners this year, so you won't get a chance to play them again the rest of the regular season. But Seattle, a game back of you. San Francisco is in the hunt, in the race. They're finally going to get a bye week coming up soon. So that almost kind of like brings a level of a sense of urgency. And if you look at the Rams schedule, they've got Carolina next week. We saw Carolina last night. They should win that game. Cardinals, they should win. Lions at home, that should be fun in a few weeks. At Seattle, that's a short week Thursday night. That's a tough spot. At Atlanta should be a win. Cardinals at home, that should be a W. Boy, you do me a homework assignment for me on Carving Up. You find me that a glaring weakness is Rams team, and I will, man, I'll give you a cookie or something. I mean, yeah, I don't see it. I really, really don't. This team is absolutely loaded, and we knew they were Super Bowl bust coming into the season because of the age of their quarterback, because they won obviously in 21, a couple of years later, make the playoffs last year, came closer than anybody by far of beating Philadelphia. And now this year, this is the best football Stafford's ever played. This is the best football that the Rams have played, including, I think, their 2021 squad. Just a matter of the way they can put it together in the playoffs. But if they get home field advantage, they don't have to go outdoors. They're in SoFi Stadium. That could be a gigantic advantage for Stafford and for the LA Rams. So that was one of those eye-openers, like, oh, boy. Like, oh, man. And I took Tampa +7. I took the Rams to win, took Tampa +7. But you're watching that, you're like, oh, this isn't good at all. Like, this is ugly quick. So kudos to the Rams. And now I tried to put it off for 49 minutes and 30 seconds. Oh, boy. let's talk about my Pittsburgh Steelers. So this team is such an enigma. I don't know what to do with them based on the Sunday. I picked the Bears to win this game. I did. I think at 26-20, I think was my final score. And I literally said before the game, and I certainly maintained based on what the offense looks like, I said, whether Aaron plays or not, to me, doesn't make a difference. Now, I will say, had Aaron been in, he would have recognized, unlike Mason, that the Steelers were in illegal formation on their second to last drive in the fourth quarter when Mason took off for 15, 20 yards and a first down. Excuse me. So that could have been an advantage. But then again, Aaron isn't scampering for 15, 20 yards. So that Mason Rudolph was fine. Had the ugly pick early. From there, the game plan was very safe, very much. I think it's Mason threw like one pass over the middle, which was really weird. But watching that yesterday, man, and I did a reaction video. I was actually inside of Tron at Magic Kingdom when I was doing this, watching the end of that game. I couldn't help but think, watching the Chicago Bears offense have it rolling, we could show, do we have Caleb Williams numbers? Go and show Caleb Williams stats. 3 touchdowns, had the one ugly turnover. TJ Watt, who shout out to him, passed his brother JJ Watt in sacks with JJ Watt on the call, which was a really, really cool moment. 54% completion for Caleb. So again, accuracy still got to get better. 239 passing, 104 rating, 68 QBR. So Caleb was really good. But just watching that yesterday, the Bears for years were the NFC's less functional version of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, the Steelers have had better coaching, obviously. The Steelers have had better ownership. But by and large, they were kind of cut from the same cloth. They kind of had a very similar identity. Is that when you think Chicago Bears, you think 85. You think Sweetness, you think Walter Payton, but you think 85 Bears. And more recently, you think Brian Urlacher. Heck, you probably think if you think the last decade, you think Khalil Mack and that trade with the Raiders, years back. You think defense. You think hit them in the mouth. And that's thinking Pittsburgh to a greater degree because they've won 6 Super Bowls, so the Bears won. But Steel Curtin and recently with James Harrison and Troy Polamalu and all these guys, these great Steelers defenses. Not to take a single thing away from them because they are some of the best defenses in the history of the NFL. And defenses matter today. I just talked about the Rams. They're the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC, and they have the number 1 scoring defense. Like, of course defense matters. It cannot be your identity. And after years, maybe it took the Bears just losing some more and having incompetent quarterback play and bad coaches. Maybe it just took getting beaten in the head enough to be like, hey, maybe we should try and adapt to the modern NFL. Right? Like, we end up getting Caleb Williams because of a trade we made the year before with Carolina, which obviously we know now they fleeced the Panthers. Get Caleb Williams first overall. Has some moments, but rough rookie season. So you know what we need for Caleb Williams? A smart, innovative, ahead of the times, creative, runs the football, good blocking schemes, can get the absolute most out of our franchise quarterback. And is a guy who in today's modern NFL fits perfectly. Hard-nosed, but creative and young and innovative, but also hard-nosed. He'll run the football. Invest in the offensive line in the offseason. And look at the Chicago Bears. 8-3, leading the division. I hate to keep patting myself on the back. No, I don't. Listen, I'll eat it any time on the show when I'm wrong, but I'm right. I will not let you forget it. That's how I roll. Is that I said back in August, and over the course of the first half of the season, it's not going to be pretty early. Caleb's never worked with a coach like Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson never worked with a quarterback like Caleb Williams. Wasn't looking so good at camp. But I said late October, around Halloween, early November, they would start to figure each other out. And what do you know? Leading the NFC North, a loaded NFC North. Vikings aren't good, mostly because of J.J. McCarthy, but the Lions, they're in the mix. Packers, they're in the mix. And the Bears leading the division. The Chicago Bears have won 8 of their last 9 games. Why? Because they adjusted to the modern offensive game. They invested in a generationally talented quarterback. They brought in a young, brilliant, smart, young, hard-nosed head coach in Ben Johnson, and they invested in the offensive line. And the defense matters. It does. The Bears' defense hasn't been that good, mostly due to injuries this year. They said defense matters. We got to add more than what we have right now to the offensive side of the ball. Meanwhile, you look at Pittsburgh, and you look at a Mike Tomlin The Steelers gave up 31, so we can update the graphic. Here you go. Mike Tomlin, when the Steelers allow 30 or more points, 7-45. Since Big Ben retired, 1-12. And since that 2017 playoff loss to Jacksonville, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 1-22 in games in which they give up 30 points. As I always remind you, that win came this year, week 1, against the good-for-nothing New York Jets. Gave up 30 to Justin Fields in that game. Made him look like Lamar Jackson. And the defense hits you in the mouth culture. Yeah, let's see how that's worked. Highest paid defense in football the last 5 years. Let's see how that's worked because it's been awful. 21, Steelers ranked 24th. 22, they ranked 13th, so not bad. 2023, they were 21st. Last year, 12th, not bad. This year, 27th. 27th. You got TJ Watt giving your team free points on the strip sack fumble recovery in the end zone. You've invested in the defense. You've invested in that defense. You've paid TJ Watt, and you've paid Cam Hayward, and you drafted an interior defensive lineman when you kind of needed help at wide receiver last year in the draft. And you did all of these things. You've invested at corner. You brought in Jalen Ramsey. You brought in veterans like Darius Slay. And Kyle Duggar's been a good pickup. I will give credit where it's due. I like the Kyle Duggar pickup. And the defense is still below the middle of the pack at best, on its best day. And you're out here, cross your fingers. Is Mason Rudolph going to make a game-winning drive happen? Oh, is Aaron Rodgers? Can he stay healthy enough for us to win? That was the world Chicago Bears used to live in. To a worse degree, more dysfunctional, but that was kind of what the Bears were living through. And now, by the way, after starting 4-1, the Ravens have caught you. They are tied, and right now they have the tiebreaker for the AFC North title. That's where you're at. I can't even get that mad. I can't. I know the O-line's not very good. I know the play calling depends on the Sunday. Very conservative. I didn't love it. Mason Rudolph, he's a good backup. Mason's a good backup. That's about it. And Aaron's a very limited quarterback at this stage in his career. But Mike Tomlin said, I'm going to do it my way. I think we can win games the highest level with him. Oh, okay. I've gotten on Aaron for his bad performances this season, but the course of the Steelers, the issues with the Steelers this year do not stem with Aaron Rodgers. They do not stem with Mason Rudolph. They do not, in large part, stem that much from Arthur Smith. It stems from the head coach. And we are, what is this? Is this year 19 for Tomlin? I know the non-losing season. I know people just eat that up like it's pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving. And I love me some pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving. It's the most meaningless stat in the history of sports. Move on, guys. He's not the guy. He's not the guy. It's okay. It's okay to admit when you're wrong, but he's not the guy. So that's where we're at. Okay, come back after the break. Do a quick recap of Week 12. I don't know if we'll have time to do the full Bryson's Best 10 segment, so we'll just do like a skim down of my list. I've got a graphic with the top 10 list, and of course predictions for carving up the context as well. You're going to like carving up the context this week, some NBA stuff. And, of course, Thanksgiving predictions, Black Friday predictions. Do all that in just 1 minute here on Carving Up Live, so do not go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving It Up. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Again, today's show is pre-recorded. We may be doing a live show late on Black Friday to react to Thanksgiving games, to react to, I guess that'll be during the Texas A&M game. So, maybe keep you posted on that. This is a great sports week. Thanksgiving football in the NFL. You got some amazing Black Friday games. And then, of course, rivalry week in college football, which, by the way, before I continue, we're an hour into the show, and I still have not mentioned the fact that for the first time, it feels so good. For the first time in 22 years, since I was a wee little thing, since I was just a few months old, ladies and gentlemen, the Tennessee Volunteers have finally knocked off the Florida Gators in Gainesville. Did so in dominant fashion, 31-11. Joey Aguilar was great, doing the Gator chomp after the game. It was great. And for those that do not watch the Saturday morning tailgate, first of all, what are you doing? You got to check it out. Saturday morning tailgate, here you go. Every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network. My two co-hosts, shout out to them, Arthur Hurst, Tim Barnard. Tim Barnard, diehard Florida Gators fan. I mean, he's been a part of Florida at points in his life. We had a bet, and the clip's on my social media, so check it out on Carving It Up, my Carving Up Instagram. We had a bet about this game that if Tennessee or if Florida won, I had to do the Gator chomp for 5 minutes straight in the show, which would have been a good workout for my shoulders, but wouldn't have been good for me, for the show at least. And if Tennessee won, which they did, Tim Barnard, who's from Boston, by the way, would have to sing Rocky Top on this show. And so safe to say you'll want to tune in 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time on the Grid Network, the Saturday morning tailgate. We're getting kicked off for what's going to be an amazing rivalry week Saturday in college football. All right, let's do a week 12 recap real quick. And I have to speed run through this because we're going to do Carving Up the Context, Bryce's best 10 predictions, and get out of here because I got a bus to catch to Hollywood Studios. So Patriots beat the Bengals 26-20. Again, kind of a weird game for New England. Multiple opportunities the Bengals had to win that game. I know it was Joe Burrow was believed like, he could give it a go. He might. Ended up not doing so. For entertainment purposes, it'd be cool to see him on Thanksgiving. I would love to see him pull off an upset over the Ravens so that it would help my Steelers. But I don't think at this particular moment in time it would be necessarily good for him. As for New England, 9 straight wins. Number 1 seed, not just in the AFC, in the whole NFL. They got the best record in football. They're 10-2. And they've still got is their bye week next week? Yeah, their bye week's next week, and then they've got a Monday night game against the Giants, which they should win easily, although we'll talk about the Giants later. Good win for New England. Drake May is absolutely balling right now. To me, he is second place for MVP, probably followed very closely by one Dakota Prescott. Ravens over the Jets. Shout out to the Jets, okay? They have been covering for me. Like, maybe the Jets need to be part if I were a bet man more often, because last week, 13.5-point dogs. Picked them to cover. They lost by only 13. Sunday, 13.5-point dogs. Picked them to cover, 13. And by the way, I said they lose by 13. Is that not exactly what they did? Baltimore's offense, though, it has not looked great since Lamar Jackson came back. I'm not necessarily blaming Lamar per se, but against Miami, against the Miami Dolphins, they had 338 yards. Okay, pretty good. Not amazing, but solid. Against the Minnesota Vikings, the Baltimore Ravens, at times struggling with the football, 321 yards. Okay. And then against the Cleveland Browns, who we know have an amazing defense, the Baltimore Ravens had 351 yards, solid. And then yesterday against the New York Jets, ran the football relatively effectively, but had only 241 yards. Jets outgained them. So like the offenses, it's kind of the defense has been carrying Baltimore. Now, keep in mind the quarterbacks they played are Tua, J.J. McCarthy, Dylan Gabriel / Shedeur Sanders, and Tyrod Taylor. So it's not saying much. But they could play Burrow on Thursday. They played Drake May later this year. They played Jordan Love. So they still play some good to elite quarterbacks the rest of the way this season. But oddly enough, it's been the defense that's been carrying the Ravens, even though they got off to a horrid start this season. Seattle, man. You had one job. You just had to cover this amazing defense that you guys have. You just had to hold the Tennessee Titans to a situation where you cover the 13.5. What do you? Or I think it was actually 13. What are you doing? Out here letting Cam Ward at times make some plays in you. Seattle's defense was great. Don't get me wrong. My gosh, that's all I got to say at the Seahawks. I was disgusted by that. Green Bay domination against the Minnesota Vikings, 23-6. I don't want to sound mean because I think he's a good kid. Man, J.J. McCarthy is not the answer. This isn't a situation where quarterback struggles, but maybe we need a new coach. Kevin O'Connell's a good coach. Like, that's not the issue. You've got the weapons. And some of this is a credit to Green Bay's defense, which is among the best in the league. Micah Parsons had 2 sacks. But J.J. McCarthy had a passer rating of 34 and a QBR 0 to 100 of 17. I mean, this season, folks, he's got 6 touchdowns and 10 picks. I mean, he's not accurate. He's got a solid arm, but is not accurate. He had 87 passing yards in this game. God, they screwed up moving on from Darnold, man. And I know they invested in J.J. McCarthy, but if they – Good news for Minnesota is they might have a pick high enough to take a quarterback next year. But I didn't believe in J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. I'm sorry I didn't. I liked his arm strength, but downfield passing, he was not relied upon really at all. It was Blake Corum. It was Dylan Edwards with that great Michigan O-line, Jim Harbaugh, that defense that helped them win a national championship and have as much success as they did prior to that. McCarthy made some plays here and there, had a good game-winning drive against Alabama in the semifinal game. That's about it. Like, he was not a first-round talent in the slightest. I said before the 2024 draft, in a QB draft that took 6 first-round quarterbacks, he was far and away the prospect with the least amount of upside. And he got Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson. Oh, man, that's bad. He's a bad player. Detroit, though, survived by the skin of their teeth against the New York Giants. I guess I'm contractually obligated to do it. Dan Campbell, what'd y'all do on Sunday?
Kneecap.
Not that many kneecaps, though. Detroit wins this game 34-27 in OT, just survived by the skin of their teeth. Jared Goff was clutch late. Jameis Winston, though, that's the story. To be honest, he had 2 touchdowns passing. He had 1 touchdown receiving. Jameis Winston catches a pass, breaks a tackle, and runs at 33 yards to the house, ladies and gentlemen. You love to see it. Jameis doing his thing. Very, very impressive performance from him. The Lions defense still has some major holes, but Detroit wins that game 34-27. Jaguars win 27-24. A very uneven, weird performance from Trevor. 3 touchdowns, 3 ugly interceptions, but the Jags get the job done. They keep running the football well with ETN. Tootin kind of had a quiet game, but ETN was solid in this one, was able to take advantage of, some Arizona Cardinals errors. They're able to win that game in OT, and the Jags are 1 game back of the Colts. I told you, Jags were my pick to win the AFC South. They're only a game back, and they play the Colts twice. So very good news for Jacksonville. Talked about the Browns over the Raiders, Falcons over the Saints. This is why it was the bleak back game, man. Because I had no confidence in predicting the Saints, and of course they lost to Atlanta. Also, by the way, I almost forgot about this one. Last night, Niners over the Panthers, 20-9. Obviously, Bryce has some limitations. I like the kid. I do. I thought he was not as bad as what he showed his rookie year because the situation around him was pretty terrible. But the physical limitations are a problem. And when you're playing a defense coached by Robert Saleh, even with no Fred Warner, even without Nick Bosa, you've got to have almost superhuman receivers around you. And same thing with your offensive line in order to get the job done. They have multiple opportunities. Brock Purdy threw 3 first-round picks. 3. And you weren't able to take advantage. But as for San Francisco, look, again, Purdy gives them a pop that they don't have with Mac Jones in their offense. The decision-making is atrocious. I mean, this year, if you look at Brock Purdy this year, he's got 7 picks in 4 games that this guy's played this year? Not great. He's not been smart with the football whatsoever. But Niners are 8-4. Shanahan, I maintain with respect to Vrabel, Steichen, Ben Johnson. I still say Shanahan's the coach of the year. Purdy's limited. Mac Jones is really limited, and they're 8-4. They've lost their 2 best defensive players. Brandon Ayuk has been let go from the team. I mean, just A+ coaching on the part of San Francisco and the part of Kyle Shanahan. Okay. So again, a little bit of time crunch. So let's go and get into it. Carving up the context, the segment I do every week, usually on Wednesday, but we're kind of combining Monday and Wednesday shows. So as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I want to do an NBA topic because I saw something over the weekend that made me very, very upset. I did not like it one bit. It features the Dallas Mavericks, who lost on Saturday night to the Memphis Grizzlies at home 102-96. And Dallas this season, I mean, that goes without saying, they've been atrocious. Nico Harrison was fired as he should have been the day after the Luka Doncic trade. Like, shocker. When you trade one of the 3 best players in the league and the second greatest player who could have been the greatest player in the history of your franchise in his prime, it usually doesn't work out for you. But late in that game, there's a little bit of a scuffle, a little bit of a back and forth between Klay Thompson, who's defending his teammates. There was a kind of a dirty-ish play late in that game. And Ja Morant, who I know this is going to surprise you, did not play in this game because he doesn't play a lot of games. We'll talk about that in a second. Is talking trash to Klay Thompson. And as his teammate Cam Spencer brother Pat Spencer plays for the Warriors, by the way. He's a good, kind of energy guy off the bench. But Cam Spencer had a big-time game, played very well for the Memphis Grizzlies. He's being interviewed. And we see sometimes players interject and be like, this guy, MVP, he's the best. They'll tackle him or dump water. It's fun. Ja Morant doesn't do that at all. He doesn't give Cam Spencer love. He doesn't, hey, look, great game, big fella. That's what I'm talking about. You a beast. He took the moment, in a game he did not play in, mind you, to talk smack about Klay Thompson, who he had a back and forth with at the end of the game. So we'll play Ja's soundbite. You'll have to listen to it because the interview is with Cam Spencer. You'll hear Ja in the background, and then Klay Thompson's response. Play the bite.
You seem to be one of those guys. How much do you enjoy that moment? Tight game, ball in your hand.
Yeah, I'm a competitor, man. Yeah, come on now. Let's go, baby.
And then with Ja, he's a funny guy. He has a lot to say all the time, especially for a guy who rarely takes accountability. But you know what? That's for another day.
What did Ja have to say on this occasion?
Nothing of intelligent depth. It was really just his just running his mouth, and he's been running his mouth for a long time. And it's funny to run your mouth when you're on the bench. It's kind of the story of his career so far.
And it's funny. I was thinking about that. Because if you didn't hear what Josh said in that first bite, he said he was talking about Cam Spencer. He's like, he was the best shooter in the house. It wasn't bro from Golden State, referring obviously to Klay Thompson. And, I think it's really, really funny. And Klay kind of did it. And Klay actually, I thought, did it in a pretty classy manner. And later in the interview, he actually talked about like, hey, we want to see Ja on the floor. He's an exciting player. He's a fun player to watch. Like, we want to see him on the floor. But circumstances, some out of Ja's control, some very much in Ja's control, have taken him off the court. I was thinking about this, how, Ja was the second overall pick in 2019 out of Murray State, was this electric, high-flying athletic point guard. Second pick in 2019, Klay Thompson, 11th pick, so still a lottery pick, but certainly did not have close to the expectations coming into the league that Ja Morant did coming out of Washington State in 2011. And I just want to do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison into the two players, because Ja's talking a lot for a guy that has not accomplished close. Forget Klay Thompson. Obviously, Klay's accomplished more. That's not a fair comparison. Klay's played more time. Klay's been part of a dynasty. But let's look at the first 6 years of Klay's career as the 11th overall pick, by the way, compared to Ja's. So we'll start with Klay. So he's a two-time All-NBA, three-time All-Star. First 6 years in the league, by the way. Two-time NBA, All-NBA, three-time All-Star, first-team All-Rookie, 9 30-plus point playoff games, 4 35-plus point playoff games, 2 NBA championships, no suspensions, and of the first 6 games, Klay missed 12 games. Missed only 12 games. This includes playoffs, by the way, in his first 6 years in the NBA. Like, the guy was like 80 games, no question. Klay Thompson's going to be there. Ja, on the other hand, is a little bit of a different story. Less All-NBAs, 1. Less All-Stars, 2. Like Klay, he was first-team All-Rookie. 1 fewer 30-point playoff game than Klay, 8. 1 fewer 35-point playoff game, 3. 0 NBA championships. Of course, he's never even been to a conference finals. 3 suspensions. He has missed 181 games over the course of his career. Klay, in the first 6 years of his career, just put that into context, carving up the context. Klay Thompson missed 12 games. Ja Morant, put that stat up one more time. 181 games missed. Worry about yourself. You keep your side of the street clean before you go. And some people might say, "Oh, Klay's washed." Yeah, of course he's washed. He's in year 15. I know this is breaking news. Most people don't age like LeBron, Steph, and KD. That's usually not how it works. So Klay's in year 15, years removed from back-to-back devastating injuries to his ACL, in which, by the way, he tried to come back and play in, and to his Achilles. And did you know, by the way, since Klay Thompson's Achilles injury, since the time he tore his Achilles, from not since he came back, from the time he tore his Achilles, did you know he's missed less games than Ja Morant has missed? The man missed a season and a half. He's missed less games than Ja Morant. What does that tell you? It tells me that this is a guy who is, you could talk about Klay's struggles. We can talk about how the shot doesn't seem to be there. How Klay is a guy who has been consistent, who has been team first, who is at his peak, a 25 times better defender than Ja Morant. Klay Thompson was the guy they put on Damian Lillard, on Kyrie Irving, on Russell Westbrook in some of those playoff runs. Ja Morant, they attack you. They go after you on the defensive end. Klay Thompson's a guy who's physically available. Ja Morant is not. I know listen, Klay Thompson also, by the way, I guess that was year 4 in the NBA, had a 37-point quarter. Never been done, by the way, in the history of the NBA. Didn't miss a shot in that quarter. And something else, too, because I know in modern basketball culture, it's a lot about highlights. And listen, basketball's a highlight game. I'd prefer nothing against the Spurs. Tim Duncan's one of the 7 best players ever. Greatest power forward ever, no question, and led a dynasty. I prefer you not be like the Spurs dynasty, kind of boring, and move the ball, some shot. I want to see three-point shooting. I want to see dunking on your head. I want to see transition. I want to see something big and exciting, or even a great defense like Oklahoma City, what they're doing right now. I know Ja Morant's fun to watch. I know he'll dunk on your head. I know he's exciting. He's got the handle and all. He'll try and dunk on a guy who's 7'5". Is there a single person who would build a basketball team who, when they're trying to construct a roster in their primes, would take Ja Morant over Klay Thompson? Klay's an elite shooter. Klay's an elite defender. Klay was an elite teammate. Klay was always at his best in the biggest spots. Klay's available when Ja is not. Klay make good decisions off the court. Ja has not. So before you get on other people, before you get on vets, on champions, on future Hall of Famers, because, by the way, Klay, that whole situation started because Klay was defending a teammate who your teammate, cheap shotted late in the game, defending his guy because Klay's been a great teammate over the course of his career. Worry about your side of the fence. Worry about actually being available more than 65 at best games. Worry about staying healthy. Worry about being a much better teammate than you've been this season and over the course of your career. Klay Thompson's had his day in the sun, and it overwhelmingly exceeds yours. Oh yeah, cool. You got fun dunks on social media. You got a few highlight plays where you're reverse layups. Oh, cute, fun, great. And in 15 years, barring some drastic change, people will be like, "Oh yeah, that Ja Morant, he was cool." Yeah. But it was, Klay Thompson, though. I mean, Game 6, Klay, the 37 and a quarter, and some of those great finals performances, defensively. And that guy, you can say, well, he had Steph Curry. There were games where Steph was not always amazing in Game 6, and Klay was. So in this week's edition of Carving the Context, I saw that, and I thought, boy, that's really something for a guy. And by the way, we talk about Klay. Like literally the most low maintenance player, athlete in the world. Klay is, I think, due to frustration with his declining athletic ability due to the injuries and due to age, has been a little more testy. I've talked about in the show, has been a little bit more irritable. By and large, Klay's a chill dude. Klay's pretty relaxed. And for you to go after him, and by the way, to go after is saying, bro's I'm not saying Klay's shooting the ball well this year, but Klay's one of the 5 greatest shooters in the history of the sport. Worry about keeping your side of the street clean. And I know Klay will worry about his. So that's it for this week's edition of Carving Out the Context. Okay, we got to really speed run this thing. So here's my top 10 teams in the NFL. Do you have the graphic? Here you go. So I've got the Rams the best, Patriots 2, Seahawks 3. I only dropped the Eagles 3 spots because, Dak Prescott always beats Philadelphia. Denver stays where they're at 5. Kansas City up 3 spots to 6. They're dangerous. They're coming. The Niners are at number 7. Bears and Packers on the list at 8 and 9. They were not ranked last week. Colts fall 3 spots to 10. And I almost put Baltimore over Indianapolis. I really did. Daniel Jones got exposed in that game. No question. Okay, quickly. Let's do NFL predictions. So as for Packers-Lions, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers plus 2.5 on the road. I think that defensive line with Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary and others could give Jared Goff a very, very long day, similar to what they did in week 1. I've got Green Bay. Each year we do the Gobble It Up Game of the Week, and in this case, it is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Dallas Cowboys. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going with the upset. Give me the Dallas Cowboys over the Kansas City Chiefs in a high-scoring affair, 31-27. Dak's going to have a big game at home. George Pickens is going to make some plays. CeeDee Lamb's got to catch the football. He's got to learn to do that. I think the fact that Trey Smith is going to be out for this game for Kansas City, Quinnen Williams, Odighizuwa-Clark could really expose that matchup. I like Dallas to win this sucker outright. You give me Dak as a home underdog where he has a winning record. Give me the Dallas Cowboys to win. And then at night, I've got the Ravens over the Bengals. I do like Cincinnati +7. I think Joe Burrow does come back in this game. I hope the Bengals win because that would really help the Steelers in the division race. But I think Baltimore wins 29-23 over the Bengals, but I do like Cincinnati +7. So I like 3 dogs. All right. So I like, Packers +2.5 to win, Cowboys +3.5 and to win, Bengals +7.5, but the Ravens to win. And as for the Black Friday game, I've got Philadelphia winning a close one, +6.5. That says Eagles +6.5. That should say Bears +6.5. I apologize. But again, I think Chicago covers. Philadelphia needs the win at home. They're going to get it at home. They're a better team than the Bears. They desperately need to get back on track offensively. Not saying they'll necessarily do it in this game, but I've got the Eagles winning 23-20. So I've got all dogs on Thanksgiving and on Black Friday. Speaking of which, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up on Friday. We'll announce a time, maybe a little bit later in the night, to react to college football, to react to the 3 NFL Thanksgiving games, Vol View, NFL Week 13 predictions. Got some great games. Very, very excited about that. Have a great week. A happy Thanksgiving. Stay on the lookout for a Thanksgiving draft video with my good friends, former co-host at the Triple Option Sports Show, Addison Ragland, Asher Moore. Be putting that in the YouTube channel on Thanksgiving morning. So check it out. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody out there. Appreciate y'all, everybody watching and listening. Stay safe out there. Enjoy that turkey. I'm going to be enjoying me some pumpkin pie, ladies and gentlemen. God bless y'all. Peace out. Because pumpkin pie is the best Thanksgiving food, and y'all know it. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.